All right, and welcome back to the Black Psychologist Podcast, episode 8. We appreciate everybody being here. First and foremost, an announcement. Okay, this is episode 8. We want to thank everybody for listening, for watching, for
Yep.
subscribing, for tuning in. So, let me get into it. I'm, of course, Dr. Kyle Osborne, your psychologist and your clinician, and one half of your host. And of course, like I just said, I'm not here by myself. I'm here with the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. None other than Dr. Jason Coleman. How are you, sir?
I'm good, my brother. How you feeling?
Good, man. Doing pretty good. Like I said, it's episode 8. And we're
Right.
here. And big announcement is that we, in addition to, people being able to watch us on YouTube and being able to, listen to us via the links on our social media pages, we're moving up in the world. So
Yep.
recently, we're on all streaming apps. Okay, so all music and podcast streaming apps. So we're on Spotify now. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on that podcast app that's on your iPhone, the one that looks like the purple one that looks like the Incredibles logo or symbol. So for everybody listening out there, it just got a lot more easier for you guys to tune in on us and subscribe. So if you're on any one of those streaming platforms or those apps, come check us out. Okay, the Black Psychologist, man, we're moving up in the world. So, but we couldn't have done it without you guys listening and watching. And so we appreciate, you know.
Everybody that subscribed and please continue to support. We definitely appreciate the support and leave the comments because we could use the advice, questions, or articles or any topics.
Absolutely. All right, man. So we go ahead and get it. And first, let me back up. How was your weekend, brother? How was your Easter and everything?
Oh man, it was good, man. Just relaxing with the family. Had some good food. Can't complain, but back on Monday. It's like that was a year ago now. It's crazy. What about you?
Same here, man. I was pretty simple, pretty chill. Baby girl came down for the weekend or for a few days, so it was good. We hanging out, So yeah, it was pretty chill. So like you said, got something to eat, just kind of chilling. So pretty low key.
Listen, man, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Ain't nobody doing nothing. Nobody's doing nothing anyway.
Nah, not at all. Not over here. We gotta stay safe.
Yeah, man. At least until the summertime when stuff opens up outside completely.
Exactly. All right, man. So let's get into it. So first topic of the day. As we know, there's a lot of stuff in the news. Nothing more important or more heavier that is what's going on with the Derek Chauvin trial, which is
Yep.
related to the unfortunate death of George Floyd. So that's been going on for the past 2 weeks, and so a lot
Yep.
of testimony has been taking place. A lot of the witnesses that were there are taking a stand and they're giving their accounts of what took place. And so, what's been taking place with a lot of the witnesses that have been taking the stand is that there's been in the midst of them giving their accounts of what took place during that day is that a lot of the witnesses are experiencing and witnessing a lot of guilt and sadness regarding George Floyd's death, and just kind of as they are giving their accounts and kind of recapping on what they took place. And so a lot of them are experiencing guilt, sadness, and a lot of other intense emotions
Right.
while on the stand and giving their testimony. So I'm not sure how much of it you've been able to see, but from what you have been able to see, what's your take on it?
I mean, listen. Obviously, we got to send condolences out to George Floyd's family because this is it's about him. It's been too many black men lost in that fashion. But when we talk about this is trauma, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people people a lot of times miss it because these are witnesses, these are bystanders. But I mean, we're talking all of these things that a lot of these witnesses were talking about. We come down to like symptoms of PTSD.
Yeah.
They're talking about sleep disturbance. They're talking about distressing memories. They're talking about intruding thoughts and memories, those type of things, sadness. So again, I'm not saying all of them have PTSD, but these are the symptoms classically of PTSD. And I totally understand, because there have been times over the last 2 to 3 years where I've had some of those same symptoms from watching murders on my phone. I've seen I can estimate I've probably seen 10, 12 murders on my phone, by police shooting people, so I mean, that does something to you. And then when you see it over and over again, to see George Floyd life extinguished, on video, to see Eric Garner murdered on video, to see Fernando Castillo, how he looked after on video, Walter Scott shot in the back on video, Tamir Rice killed on video. Do I have to keep going?
Nah, that's
so
yeah.
These aren't movies, these are things that we saw, people whose life was extinguished that are gone. So to think that people are not going to have a reaction to that, it's crazy,
Yeah, I mean, it's even like you said, it's already devastating and difficult, I think is an understatement to say. Like, when you watch a video of his death, it's already a huge emotional impact. So now take in consideration the individuals that were there. Right. You have the people that were actually, whether they were there like filming it, or you have the store clerk that called the police regarding the money situation, or the firefighter, right? And like you said, in addition to the trauma that they're experiencing, I mean, this is also, they're experiencing that form of helplessness. Right. I mean, being there and not being able to help. I think the firefighter mentioned that, the police wouldn't allow her to help him. So her job, right? Her job and her training is part of helping people, right? Saving lives. And when you have you have law enforcement saying that, no, you can't do this. And she's sitting there watching, like you said, this life being extinguished in front of her. Right. And then you have others that would possibly either maybe filming it, my heart just goes out to, the store clerk, because I think he's young. He's maybe like in his late teens, early 20s or so. And, he's just talked about just experiencing this tremendous amount of guilt. And, it's like that, it's that, what do they call it? The survivor's guilt. Right. Of when you have individuals that have survived the trauma, right? They sometimes experience like this false belief that they would have been able to save. And for example, to save George Floyd's life. And, I can only imagine, like you said, those intrusive thoughts that are coming in. And you have they have to live with this guilt. I mean, this is something that even as anytime they retell this story, they're going to be reliving it, right? Because that's the issue with trauma, right? When you've experienced something, you're also reliving it, even when you retell it. So, and this is something that's going to stay with them for the rest of their life.
See, and what you said is exactly, I agree with that. What I would add is, think about it. Like, most of the people you were talking about, younger, older, for the most part, you were talking about adults, right? But even in this article, like one of the girls that filmed the video, one of the videos that went viral, she was in high school, right? Talking about she's having problems maintaining adequate sleep, all of those things, right? But in her mind, she's talking about, I should have done more. So you have guilt, you have that helplessness aspect, reliving what she's seen. Now, this is a child, you know what I mean? With all of that on their shoulders. A 9-year-old child took the stand. Another 9-year-old child took the stand, talking about, I believe, don't kill me if I misquoted, but, not a day goes by when I don't think about George Floyd and what I saw. These are things that they're going to have to deal with and remember for the rest of their life, At that age, at 9 years old, you watch somebody killed in front of you, and we got to think of what the domino effect and the implications are. This is a 9-year-old kid that watched the police kill somebody. Mm-hmm. So how do you think he made his perceptions of law enforcement, of safety, of all of those things may be different in everybody right now, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. From what I've seen and I've experienced over my life, my perception of law enforcement and safety is different. You know what I mean? I primarily rely I'm not saying I rely on myself all the time, but my first thought in every situation isn't necessarily to call the police. You know what I mean? If I'm lost, I don't call the police. It has to be an extreme situation where I need law enforcement assistance, and then I will call them. You know what I mean? But I try to reduce as much police contact as possible because of my experiences. You know, but that's nothing compared to what these kids have seen, right? So if we just think about how it may impact them in so many areas of their life, they got to deal with the trauma. And then you got all of the social and all of that aspect of, as black males and females and young black children growing up, they're going to have to interact with law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And they watch law enforcement kill somebody in front of them. And there was a whole bunch of adults around that couldn't do nothing about it. So it's going to be, you know, again, my main concern is about the long-term impact, you know, and what it will be. Because again, kids are very resilient. For all we know, like we've seen some of these kids that have been survivors of these shootings and high school, some of them have ended up being like advocates and all of these things, you know. Kids are very resilient. So, you know, hopefully they can turn it into one of those type of situations, you know, where they use this situation, you know, as motivation to make a difference. But there's going to be an impact.
Yeah, yeah, and you just don't know. Like this is, like you said, for someone at that young of an age, how do you contextualize what's taking place of you, right? How do you process what's taken, and you hope, like you said, it has an effect where maybe it turns into someone that goes into, you know, becomes an advocate, right?
Right.
Well, we don't know, because you have some situations where what if there's limited resources or this person doesn't get the support that we need, because that's also plays a really important part, right? Someone that age, you know, the child or the young people and even the adults, like what if they're not getting the necessary treatment or support given what they've experienced?
Right? I mean, that's a fact. And then look at the developmental age, right? I understand civil rights. So I understand the history of the police in this country and how, you know, law enforcement has been used to oppress us. And I understand it. I grew up watching videos and learning about how the police use hoses and police dogs and sick them on us, right? A 9-year-old, they may understand Martin Luther King Jr., basic elements and Rosa Parks and basic elements of civil rights. For them, they just watched the police murder somebody.
Right. Yeah.
That context is not there. You understand what I'm saying? The same way it might necessarily be for me or you. They just watch the police, who everybody says call 911 when you're in trouble, right? That when I'm in my office and I'm talking to these little kids, when I talk to mommy, talk to your teacher, or who are those big guys with the badges, right? This is how I talk to kids. But a 9-year-old, he just watched the big guy with the badge murder somebody. And all of the other big guys with badges or females stood around and watched. So how that's going to impact a 9-year-old, you know, you're exactly right. Because advocacy, you know, may not come until 12, 13, 14 years old.
Right. And that's with hopefully they gain some insight. They get the support. It could turn into, because as you know, and I know at that young age, very impressionable, depending on what they get exposed to, it could be a situation where, you know what, I hate the police.
Right.
It could turn into anger very quickly.
Exactly.
Given, like you said, if you're, and this has happened way too frequently. You just rattled off a number of incidents and people. So it's not hard to fathom how someone that age, even adults being there now, like you said, it creates that incongruence where, okay, I'm supposed to tell the cops, right, or police if I'm in danger, but what if the cops are the danger? So now, you know what? I'm not doing this. Cops, nope. Like, so it can reinforce a whole total different mindset. Like we said, we hope and we're optimistic that it'll go to advocacy and it'll go into a thing where she's, you know, that individual is able to change, but we don't know. And as you say, like you see and you deal with that raw emotion that's in front of you of what you've experienced.
Right. And that's that's probably my wishful thinking. You know what I mean? Because again, that comes with insight, right? Mm-hmm. And for those kids and those people, like you saw them understand, all they got right now is trauma and hurt all around. You know what I mean? Because that happened in a community. So it's not like, you know, I'm sure every time they drive past that corner, you know, they think about that. So it is wishful thinking. I'm saying that's what I would hope would happen in the best case scenario. But what's more likely to happen is that, you know, that is going to be an event they witness live, you know, in concert with all the other things they witnessed on their phones, you know, and they're going to develop a certain perception of law enforcement as a result. And they're justified in doing that. I can't blame them.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I'm with you on that. I'm wishful that that'll be the result of the people that were experiencing that trauma firsthand. I'm hopeful, optimistic, all those things. So, and you know, we have to continue to watch the trial as it unfolds. You know, what I will say to people, not just those that were there firsthand, but you know, everyone watching is definitely, because it takes a toll on, like you said, us watching it and re-seeing the footage. It's hard as hell to watch, and definitely making sure that everyone, you're taking care of yourself as this trial unfolds, as more witnesses take the stand. And you know, it's going to be a roller coaster ride of what the defense presents, what the prosecution presents, and it's going to be taxing. So I'm you know, definitely recommending that people continue to take care of themselves. Don't get too immersed, as far as like balance out, take some breaks from your exposure to watching this trial, and continue to take care of yourself, and be around supportive people, because this is going to take a toll, I feel, on a lot of people, especially us, because again, when we see this happening to someone that looks like us, it damn sure has an impact on us, people, you know, people, your experiences. So as this unfolds, guys, I definitely want everybody to just continue take care of yourself, limit, you know, your exposure to this trial, and you know, and we'll see how everything plays out.
Word.
You know? So moving on and staying on the topic of race, so one of our listeners and watchers, you know, put in one of our comments about the issue of colorism. And so
Okay.
I thought that that was an interesting topic, because this is something, when we're talking about colorism, you know, this has been an issue that's existed for centuries, you know, in our community, you know, and unfortunately it has, you know, it's been going on since slavery. Unfortunately, you know, that's where, unfortunately, the root of this, of the colorism that took place. And for people that maybe aren't aware of what colorism, what I'm referring to is that anyone of any particular ethnicity or race group, and you know, within any race group, there is a variety of pigmentation. So you have some folks that are on the lighter side, or light skin, fairer skin, and then you have folks that, you know, range from that all the way down to dark skin. And so this is what we're referring to as the colorism and the discrimination that that accompanies this, unfortunately. And so, for what I'm referring to, especially in our community, is that, again, it's existed for centuries, all the way back into, you know, the enslavers or slave masters gave preferential treatment to people that were of lighter or fairer skin, you know. So they had those individuals maybe working in the house where where the work was less strenuous, less taxing, and you had the, you know, darker complexion slaves outside, right? And so, you know, and not to say, of course, that, oh, what was going on inside was better or anything, because slavery is slavery, and it's fucked up all the way around.
Sure.
However, you know, this was the separation, right? It was a divisive method that existed, or that was enforced upon, you know, slaves. And so, you know, when you look at how that evolved from then, even looking at when you see, you know, the fair skin, that's a telltale sign of sexual assault, right? Because we knew that's what the slave masters were doing. They were, you know, taking advantage or sexually assaulting, raping, you know, the women. And this is how that pigmentation existed, right? This is how it came into effect. And so it went from slavery those times to, even, you know, we fast forward to post slavery, right, to the late 1800s into the early 1900s, where unfortunately a lot of the opportunity, the employment, was off limit to darker skinned individuals, where it was only, you know, employment opportunities were given to the lighter skinned or fairer skinned people. And so, that created like an upper class of families within the Black society, and it was largely consisted of light skinned or fairer skinned African Americans. And so, that just kind of to give like a historical kind of, content or a historical kind of artifact as far as things go. And then here we are, right? So now it's created, and that's just from that point in time or that period in history to the brown paper bag test, right? So now you have African Americans using a brown paper bag to say, you know what, nah, you know what, you don't pass that test. So now they're devising, they're saying who belongs in what society group, right? Who belongs in what group as far as based on the brown paper bag. So that's already,
Well,
you're discriminating against your own people at that point.
well, the thing about it is, obviously, I mean, we all know that this is a big issue, in our, not only in our community, but in a lot of communities of color.
Sure.
Specifically with our community, I mean, we've all grown up. It's anecdotally, we all have our experiences to know, that these type of, stereotypes and light skin, dark skin, in terms of like one being preferential over the other, we know, these things are reinforced within our communities, right? So in terms of, I was looking at, a few articles about it, and they were talking about an episode of Blackish that came out, where they was upset because the daughter, I guess, there was like some shade or the lighting in her class picture made her look darker. So that was what the episode was about, you know what I mean? It caused some controversy, but it's a good, kind of example because, historically in our community, we have done that, right? We have, in terms of the beauty standard, what we've seen most likely has been lighter skin, straight hair, those type of beauty standards, right? But again, it's not only Black people, right? Because I'm looking in, like, in terms of when I start looking beneath the surface, all these articles about, or like these Bollywood Indian, like, actresses, doing these commercials for like skin depigmentation, soap, and all of that type of stuff. And then it's going on in the Philippines too, so just in terms of people of color in general, it's been a divide and conquer kind of strategy, or I don't know, divide and conquer, or a way, to kind of cause separation and keep certain people elevated. But that's definitely, correct. And then to bring it back to present day, like 2021, I don't want to get her name wrong, but Vanessa Bell Calloway, the woman that acted in Coming to America 2, Princess Izzy.
Right.
She was talking about when she kind of auditioned for the first role in the first movie, she auditioned for Lisa McDowell, and of course this is her perception, but she was saying that, she thinks that the fact that, they primarily had white people funding the movie, and filling those acting roles, was one of the reasons why she got passed over, and it's a perfectly good example of kind of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, totally.
So, and of course, this is her experience, her perception, but the example in terms of, what was on the Blackish show and, what happened to her in real life, like, these are things that go on in our community on a regular basis. I don't want to get into the anecdotal, how, that type of stuff, but if you talk to every person of color knows these things exist, you know what I mean? So.
And, and it's tough. I'm glad you mentioned, the Blackish episode and the other example you provided, because, it has a huge impact, right? Because it narrows, unfortunately, it especially, I don't want to just specify or target, say, African-American females, but it does. It really does have an impact, especially on Black little girls growing up, right? It's two sides of it, where, again, depending on what's being said in the household, depending on what they see on TV or the media, right? Like, dark-skinned, little girls could definitely develop a lot of, self-image issues, right? They could develop a lot of, self-hatred, low self-esteem, low confidence, if they feel like, oh, well, you know what? Like, this is what beauty looks like, depending on what, because of that divisive type of thought process is passed down, and it's, you know, something that they see in the media, right? So Gabrielle Union and Keke Palmer said that they came out, I think, a few years ago in like separate interviews and said that, yeah, you know what, growing up, they wanted to be light skinned. They wanted to be more fair skinned because that's what they were told. That's what they saw of what beauty looks like. Right. It wasn't until they got older and they became more confident, maybe the roles of the different things, more comfortable with themselves, that they became more comfortable with what they look like, their skin complexion, their hair, all these other different things. So, you know, totally it's, and like you said, it definitely does, you know, bring it back today. I remember when Kendrick, I don't know if you remember Kendrick Lamar, he had the issue, not the issue, but on his Poetic Justice video, where he swapped out actually the leading lady who was I think they had initially picked some light-skinned young lady, and he swapped it out because he's like, no, he said there's, you know, just to kind of create balance of, and he swapped it out with someone that was of dark skin or darker complexion. And he was like, listen, like, this is what we see all the time, right? So we got to create some type of balance, because this is not something that, you know, and it wasn't like a light skin versus dark skin thing, but he was just like, I want balance because this is what's always kind of continue to be promoted, especially here. And that can have an impact, especially on impressionable little girls.
Oh, I mean, listen, I think we're past the point where we have to speculate as to, you know, what type of images, you know, the media promotes, you know, for our young ladies of color. You know what I mean? So they promote, you know, one sort of image, you know. So again, I think it's up to us, like the individual families and different people, you know, to expose our, you know, young ladies to different images and different, not only images, but to surround them with, you know, sources, whether it's media, whether it's film, whether it's experiences, whatever, you know, that celebrate their beauty and their features and all of those things, right? And again, it's not to take away from anybody else, but for other individuals, those things are already out there, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. I think we don't have to speculate and say, you know, at least from my perspective, because we can turn on the TV right now and look at who the leading ladies are and look at, you know, who has the majority of leading roles, and you're gonna see a discrepancy. You know what I mean? So
definitely a disparity. And like you said, I'm happy you mentioned like the lengths that people go through, because, you know, like this, what is it, like the whitening skin cream that a lot of, unfortunately, not just, you know, Black women, but, you know, women from the Latino, you know, community, from, you know, Southeast Asian, you know, from all these ones like you just mentioned, like they're like the whitening cream continues to be like a bestseller, you know, at these different stores. And, you know, it's used to the point where you have some individuals that are getting like mercury poisoning from using extended, right?
This is what I was going to ask you about. It was a little controversy because, like, I mentioned the Bollywood stars, right?
Right.
I don't want to say all of them, but a lot. There's enough of a percentage of them that use the skin, you know, whitening cream that is kind of an issue for some people, I guess. But it became a sort of controversy because Nick Jonas' wife is one of them, right? Mm-hmm. And she was kind of tweeting support of the Black Lives Matter movement and all of those things. And, you know, people were kind of saying like it's kind of like, those are kind of like opposite views almost. You understand? Like the irony in that. That's what individuals were kind of pointing out. So I was wondering, like, do you see any irony in that? I mean, because I certainly, I don't have any problem with them supporting the movement, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to be very careful because you don't know why individual is doing that. You know what I mean? You don't know what each person's specific reason is. But do you think that that's that's ironic? I mean, I do.
I definitely see the irony in it, especially when you frame it in a certain context. Yeah, I could see the irony in, you know, you have someone that's apparently in some form or to some extent is using a cream that's trying to, you know, lighten or, you know, her skin, and at the same time it's like, okay, you know, I want to support this Black Lives movement. So I definitely see the irony in it. I think you also have to kind of take in consideration of one, why she's using the cream. Like I said, I'm all for anybody getting involved, especially people that are not Black. I'm all for them getting in and supporting the movement, because that's also going to help, right? You can't just be Black people. It has to be people from other different ethnicities and races. And it's a situation where, I mean, you have to, I guess, look at, okay, her individual situation of why she's using it. Is it a situation where she's using it for, work, like for Hollywood, for me, or is she using it because maybe it's a self-image issue, right? It's a thing where it's like, but is it iron? Yeah, it's definitely ironic.
Yeah, as I said that to you, like I was like, okay, we got to be careful about why people are using it. I'm trying to think of like a medical reason, any other reason that's not cosmetic. I can't really think of a reason that's not cosmetic, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, same. I'm not well versed on that as far as medically. I mean, I don't know much about her. I think she's in the industry, and it may be a situation where she feels that maybe she's not able to get certain roles, or maybe it's I don't know. Or it could be a self-image issue, because you don't know again what she was told.
I think it is, man. I'm leaning towards that with anybody that really uses that. So I withdraw my last statement. You know what I mean? I don't want to offend nobody, but if anybody who's using skin lightening cream, I think is more so of an internal issue in terms of them, it might be a little bit of self-hate there. Let's just put it on.
Yeah,
I just put it on the table. It is what it is.
Yeah, no judgment. We don't judge anybody. That's not what we do here on the Black Psychologist Podcast. But it's a question that's posed.
I'm not judging.
Yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting question to pose, not just to her, but I think to anyone of, what lens or your reasoning to want to change your skin. What have you experienced in your life? What are your, what's the end goal here? So
yeah, we could start there.
Yeah.
That's good.
So moving forward, a topic or an article came across your desk about an unfortunate event where you had a I think he was 12 years old or 9 years old.
This was he's 11-year-old kid.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the child was at home one day. He was with his parents, and he told his mom and dad, "Hey, I'll be right back. I'm gonna watch some cartoons." This is after he had, I guess, been watching TV, doing stuff like on one of the tablets or the iPad or something, rather, on the phone. It seemed like a normal evening, and on the way to, I guess, watching cartoons, or on the way to his room, he decided he went into his parents' room and he got access to his dad's gun, and he unfortunately shot himself. And so he passed away from his injuries. And it's an unfortunate event. I mean, as a parent, that is the worst thing. That I can't imagine the grief that this person or the parents are going through, but that's one of the worst things that that can take place as it relates and pertains to your kids. And so the rest of the story kind of talks about just different areas, whether the child possibly was experienced, whether he was suicidal or not, the gun issues, gun control, how the parents were able to move through this most difficult time in their life to where they are now. So, what prompted, when you were kind of going through things, when it came across your desk, what prompted you what stood out for you?
Because it's a lot of issues in here. Like, one is like, he came from a family that they was around guns. They like were hunters and shooters and that culture, right? So the first issue is they spent a lot of time in this article talking about how his dad trusted him, right? Like, so again, the kid knew where the key was for the gun safe, right? He's 11, right? So they were kind of talking about, I mean, of course, they was talking about like dad's decision making, right? Like, is it appropriate to trust a kid that young? I don't care how responsible they are with knowing how to get in a gun safe, right? Because the controversy now in the article is I think the coroner might have ruled it a suicide, and mom and dad are saying, you know, it was an accident because I guess he didn't really have any signs of depression, suicidal ideation, or whatever.
Right.
So, but I think more importantly, I think the problem when we talk about this is like kids are very impulsive, and they're often irresponsible, right? Even if they're your kids, you know what I mean?
Everybody's kids are,
yeah. Right, and that's the problem, right? Everybody thinks their kids are going to be the one that's going to turn that down, right? Everybody thinks their kids are going to be the one that's going to say no. And the problem is, you know, again, I'm not blaming the child, of course, but that's why children need supervision, right? Because kids are impulsive, and they don't think things out. And then again, what's interesting about this article, they was talking about children that was like JAMA, the Journal of America, I think it was American Medical Association.
Medical Association.
They were talking about, they did a study and 40% of the parents said their kids didn't know where the gun was, and it was wrong.
Yeah, that's what stood out for me also. And
it reminds me of kids that come in my office and the parents be like, yeah, you know, Dr. J, I smoke cigarettes, but I do it outside so the kids don't know. Or I drink, but I do it outside so the kids don't know. And the kid come up and they be like, yeah, dad sits on the back porch and drink every day right there out of the red cup, because they know. So that was interesting. 40% of parents said the kids didn't know what a gun was and they were wrong. Mm-hmm. And then they said children that were educated in gun safety were just as likely to say that they played with guns.
Yeah. And the other one was 20% of the parents that claimed that the kids had never handled one of the guns were also wrong, right?
Right.
And the kids said that they had, you know, right. And you know, listen, Jay, I would never claim to be the best parent in the world, because I've definitely made mistakes. You know, parenting is learning on the job training. That's what it is. It's like a job that you can't really get prepared for. I don't care how many books you read, so on and so forth. Right? You can be enlightened and try to prepare yourself for stuff, but it's on the job training. And it's a situation where, like, for me, I always felt like, you know what, I don't want to be that parent that's naive, right? I don't want to be that parent that's either naive or oblivious to like what my kid is capable of doing.
Right.
So, like you said, it's a culture, right? And again, I'm not blaming the parents, but they have to assume some responsibility. And I know that sounds terrible, especially when you're talking about parents that have lost a child, especially in this nature. However, this is a culture, right? So, like you said, like they show pictures in the article of dad holding and showing them and all kinds of stuff, right? Okay, that's a culture. I've gone into gun shops, you know,
right,
and I've seen kids like 11, 12, 10 years old, right? Because that's the thing. Like when you're out there, I'm like, okay, all right, okay. So it's like you're introducing them to a culture, if that's the culture of the family or the household or whatever the situation may be. And they're inquisitive, right? So you can't, for me, it's like you have to safeguard and kind of put preparation, or not preparation, but you have to kind of put things in place where, you know, you have to safeguard that weapon. So I feel like dad, like a lot of parents, like I'm sure I have in other situations, right, are kind of been naive where it's like, not my kid, my, you know, like they said, like the parents in this, you know, in these studies, like you similarly said, though, they don't know that I'm in back. So just because they think it's out of sight, out of mind, right? And you know, and I know a lot of the kids that, you know, experience their first drink, first smoking, they're not getting it from outside. It's from inside the house. And they know where everything. Kids are inquisitive. They're also observant, right? Children are very observant. I don't care what age they are. Once they become independent, they know where things are. Right. And so, you know, it's definitely just a fatal error on the parents', you know, side, unfortunately, that, you know, because my thing was, well, okay, it's one thing to have the gun, right? He can get access, which is bad already, right? But then he had the key.
Right.
So if you know what I mean? Like, if one thing, if you want to leave the case, you want to leave the gun locked in the case, right? What they said it was in the case, but the kid had access to the key.
But so that's, and to me, that's an error in judgment when it comes to setting boundaries. Correct. Right? Because listen, I'm sure dad told him a million times, don't play with a loaded gun. I'm sure he told him that a million times.
Yeah, sure.
Right? I'm sure he taught him how to handle a gun a million times. The problem was when you trust an 11-year-old, can't trust an 11-year-old.
You can't trust any of these kids.
Right. I mean, look, you can't trust a 17-year-old, but you can't trust an 11-year-old.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's a lot of responsibility, man. Like a weapon, bro, it's a lot of responsibility. And
totally,
your kid should not know where the key to the gun safe is.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna, yeah, it's a situation, man. Like, and by no means am I saying that, oh, you shouldn't have guns. I know, because that's not my thing. I'm licensed to carry, so I'm fine. Protect yourself, your household, whatever.
Yeah.
However, it's a situation though, when you purchase a gun, I don't care whether it's a 9mm or AR-15, when you purchase that gun, your responsibility is also keeping it out of hands where other people, right, outside of you who purchased the gun, this all falls underneath that responsibility.
Right.
It can't be my kid would never do that, because I'm also going to self-disclose, like, my dad was in the military. There were guns downstairs in the basement of the house. Yeah, you know what? I was definitely dumb enough to go down there, and like, I saw the guns, I'm picking it up and all kinds of stuff. Shit could have went totally different, right? He told me a million times, right? Like, yo, don't do this, don't do such and such. And I think that's the error that, parents, whether it be mom or dad, whoever owns the gun, like you said, you can tell them a million times, but kids are going to go off and they're going to be impulsive. They're going to be inquisitive. They're going to do dumb stuff because that's what kids do. And you hope it's not a situation where it comes on this end,
Right.
So, you definitely just have to hold that falls right important with the responsibility of owning any type of firearm, where it's like, hey, I have to put measures in where this won't happen. It seems extreme, like for any parent to fathom, like, it's not happening, but no, it happens more often than they think.
It's not extreme, but it depends on what kind of logic you apply. But apply the same logic that you would apply to almost anything else, right? So you can look at your kid and think about in the last year. I don't care what age they are. They could be 9, 19, 29. How many times you told them not to do something and they did it? 1 year. I don't care what age the kid is. You're going to probably find 10, 20, 30 times, right? So what would make you think that an 11-year-old has the judgment and decision-making to trust them with knowing where a lethal firearm is? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And they know, like, they're resourceful. Like, kids are resourceful. 11, 7 years old, whatever they are observant, man. Like, I feel like, a common error that a lot of parents make is that they don't think that these kids, they're not paying attention to you. Like, they don't hear you. Like, they don't know, like, they're in your conversation, you talking to your best friend on the phone, they're right there. You think just because they're on the iPad or just because they're on their phone doesn't mean they don't hear. They know what's going on. Like you said, they come into your office and you ask them a question. Oh, yeah, mommy says such and such. This is what took place. Yeah, dad did such a, he's out there. Like, they know where, like, and they're resourceful, right? They know where you come home and you're just kind of like, oh, you throw your keys on the table. Oh, okay. Dad puts his stuff. Oh, dad puts his key to the thing in the drawer, right? Dad puts his gun right up here. I can reach that now. Or I can just get on top of something. I can get to it.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's unfortunate. I know another thing they talked about was gun legislation laws, which is a whole different conversation. My thing is, you got to make it as difficult as possible for, if you have kids in the household, and I don't care, you, like you said, even in the study, if you showed them how safe and how to use it, it doesn't matter. Like, you have to make it as hard as possible that they don't have access to it.
Yeah.
Because even though this might have been an accident, you don't know where you have someone, and we've seen plenty of these mass shootings take place where, the kid has things going on. He's upset. I know, what? I'm going to take it out on everybody at that school, and I got access to guns, because there's a good percentage. It was also in the article that the mass shooters, a good percentage of them got their firearms from inside the house. Right. So, you definitely just have to put those precautions. You got to put those boundaries. You got to put those precautions. You got to protect kids from themselves.
I can dig it.
Something like that. So, we'll see, man. But it's definitely heart wrenching to see any family go through this, because that's
yeah.
you
it's a
know.
good conversation to have. Like people got different opinions on it, but it's a good conversation to have, right? Because I definitely, am on the side of owning firearms, you know what I'm saying? Legally, but again, you gotta be safe with them. So once you bring kids into the picture, that's a different story. You know what I mean? So it's a good conversation to have.
Absolutely. All right. And then also, another article that came through your desk was,
Coping skills.
there you go, which is good
So,
because we've talked about a lot of heavy material, so it's good that we talk about this. So, Navy SEALs use a technique called box breathing to relieve stress.
right.
So, this article came out because stress is something that we all experience, right? Nobody's immune to stress. Stress doesn't discriminate and doesn't care who you are, male, female, old, young, ethnicity, doesn't matter, right? So this is something that I feel like a lot of people can benefit from. And the thing about breathing is that we all do it, right? If you're alive and you're talking in some form of capacity, you're breathing. However, people don't always breathe the right way. Like you and I have done individual sessions. We've done groups based off of just telling people as far as deep breathing or diaphragmatic breathing techniques. And there are a wide variation of deep breathing techniques. But I do like the box breathing, and because people, as we go in day to day, we take, we're not breathing the right way. We're breathing, but we're not doing it in the best way where it's as healthy for us. So, with the box breathing, it deals with like slowing down your breathing, to relax, increase that oxygen intake, to release the tension, increases, so what stood out for you with this article?
I mean, just because, listen, mindfulness and coping, is a big thing. Breathing, focus on breath, is a big element of mindfulness, especially when we talk about managing stress and anxiety in the midst of a pandemic, you know. And I just thought this was a good, article because breathing, especially diaphragmatic breathing or box breathing, however, alternative nostril breathing, whatever technique you want to use, it's a good way to kind of calm yourself, center yourself, ground yourself in the present moment. And it's something mobile. So you can take it, you can do it in your car, you can do it before a meeting. It's something you could do in groups, those type of things. And again, it's a great technique, because everybody understands, we can call it the stress response, but everybody understands what, fight or flight, what that
Right.
feels like, that adrenaline, when our heart rate speeds up, our breathing speeds up, but a lot of people aren't aware that, we can control the reverse reaction. So the relaxation response is kind of what box breathing engages, so it slows our breathing down, slows our pulse rate down, our heart rate, and the way it impacts our body is, overall relief in terms of stress, anxiety, and tension and those things, right? So that's why these techniques are important, because again, they're free. And as long as we do them right, it's something that can help us, on the go.
Absolutely. Like you said, the key word is that on the go, you can do it flexible. Like you said, you can do it in your car, you can do it before work. Whatever we know, yourself better than anybody, right? You're the expert on you. So that's something I've always told clients and patients, and that if you're getting ready to go into a stressful environment, whether it be work, whether you're about to go in the house and deal with the kids, pick the kids up, whatever the situation may be, like you want to be as prepared and in the best condition for you to take care of that, right? And so, stress comes from all different angles. And so, if something, like you said, it's free, and you can do it according to your schedule. Like you said, you can just take a
Sure.
couple minutes out the day and do it. And think about it, like the Navy SEALs are doing this, right? The
Yep.
Navy SEALs, you know how they operate, you know how they move, you know the conditions that
Right.
they're in. So if they're using this stress, right, if they're using this technique to kind of reduce stress, so they're able to go in and do the job that they're supposed to do on a daily basis, I mean, I feel like that's something that could be helpful, for
Yeah.
us. And like you said, you can do it pretty much to your own schedule.
And very simply, in terms of, you want to have good technique. So just in terms of simple, how I teach it in therapy is, You want, in terms of this technique, you want to inhale on a count of 4, hold on a count of 4, and then exhale on a count of 4. But just in general, you know, what you want to do is you just want to breathe in like you're smelling flowers. Mm-hmm. You want to blow out like you're blowing through a straw, or you're blowing out candles. Breathe in like you're smelling flowers. Breathe out like you're blowing through a straw. And your breath out should be slow, you know, and you want to focus on your breath. Find a comfortable position, put on some nice music, focus on the music, and stay in the present moment and try it out.
There you go. I mean, I feel relaxed already, bro. You know, but yeah, you know, one of the benefits is something like you said, what else do you have to lose? Right? What's the harm in trying it? Uh-huh. And so the more you try it, the better at it you'll get, because with everything gets better with practice. So just like you said, people have more questions about it, they can definitely reach out to us. You can Google box breathing, but it's definitely something that's been helpful for me. I do it with, my breathing techniques and with the mindfulness, the meditation. It's helpful, guys. Like, everybody has stress out there. I don't care who you are, what you're going through. You got some type of stress in your life, and, give it a try.
And it's just,
can't beat this.
People do their own research and, understand what's happening to your body, when you're doing that, because again, a lot of people are doubtful of using breathing techniques because, again, when children are upset, what do we tell them to do? Just breathe, right? But we don't really know physiologically, like, what is going on in our body underneath, just the breathing to make it effective, and if people understood that they could engage that relaxation response by doing different coping skills, then they would probably use them a lot more. So try it. Let us know how it works out.
That's it. Absolutely. So, we talked about a lot. Anything else, before we sign out of here, good brother?
No, I think we covered everything that was relevant this week. So, until next time, well, again, we got a couple of guests coming up, hopefully. So that should be exciting and interesting. We'll make it a surprise who it's going to be. But, we got some nice guests coming up to add to the conversation. Mm-hmm. So something to look forward to.
Absolutely. So people, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about something that everybody has in their life. I guarantee it. You have this topic of what we're going to be discussing in your life in some form or fashion. All right. So that's going to be episode 9. This is episode 8. Again, guys, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We appreciate everybody listening. So continue to do that. Listen, watch, comment, subscribe. We appreciate the support. And again, guys, we're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. We are on Google Podcasts. We're on that little podcast app on the iPhone. So you ain't got no excuse not to listen to us. All right, so we're here. We've been giving out that good information. You just heard Dr. J give his step-by-step on box breathing. It doesn't get any better than that.
That's free game. That's all you get for free.
Yeah, we're not even charging y'all on that. So, this is but again, we appreciate everybody listening. So continue to support because we wouldn't be here without you guys. So without anything else, signing out, Dr. J. I will catch you next week, good brother.
All right, my brother. I just found it on the podcast on YouTube.
It's on there.
No, not on YouTube. No, not on that little purple. What's that purple icon on the phone? I caught
the podcast iPhone joint. It's the Incredibles app. That's it. That's it right there. We're right there in the middle. You see that?
Oh man, you doing it, man.
Hey, brother, we trying to do it. iHeartRadio, Spotify. Here we go. We in here, man. We in the building. All right. Moving up. All right, guys. So signing off again, everybody. Appreciate everyone listening, watching. We'll see you and talk to you soon.
All right, later.
All right.